The crack of the door opening shattered the dead of night like a thunderclap from a clear sky. It was 2:43 a.m. Charleston was fast asleep. The only sound a sea breeze whispering through the wrought iron gates of the affluent Trad Street neighborhood. Dr. Lucas Callahan stood there, his blue scrubs drenched in sweat after a grueling 12-hour surgery. The hands that had saved hundreds of lives now gripped a cold Glock 19, his arm trembling uncontrollably. Before him, bathed in the soft yellow light of the luxurious living room, was a scene that brought his world crashing down. Vanessa, the wife he loved more than life itself, was wearing her wedding dress. The very same one she'd worn 3 years ago at St. Philip's Church when they had sworn, "Till death do us part." But now she was clinging to another man. Not a stranger, not some intruder. It was Derek, Lucas's own half-brother, the man he had pulled from the depths of drug addiction, the man he had given a second, third, and fourth chance to, time and time again. The most horrifying part wasn't the sight of them embraced. It wasn't the way Vanessa's hair cascaded over the bare shoulders of the now yellowed gown. It wasn't Derek's smug smirk, as if everything was going exactly according to plan. The most horrifying part was the look in their eyes. There was no shock, no surprise, not a shred of shame or fear. Instead, they looked at Lucas with an air of pity, as if he were the one in the wrong, as if he were the one trespassing in his own home. "Your home," Vanessa said, her voice as cold as ice. "Earlier than we expected." Derek smiled faintly, his hand never leaving the small of Vanessa's back. "Hey, little brother, we need to talk." Lucas stood frozen, a block of ice lodging itself in his chest. Betrayal coiled around his heart, a dull knife being slowly, deliberately twisted. This was more than a husband's agony, more than a brother's stab in the back. This was something deeper, something rotten to the core. In that instant, as the gun in his hand began to shake and cold sweat trickled down his cheek, Lucas realized a terrifying truth. The way they looked at him, the utter lack of surprise, the fact that Derek somehow knew he would be home at this exact moment, despite his surgery ending 2 hours early. This wasn't an affair caught by chance. This wasn't a drunken mistake. This was a meticulously staged performance, and he was the intended audience. 3 years, Lucas thought, the words catching in his throat. "For 3 years, I've been living a fool's life." Vanessa walked toward him, her bare feet silent on the oak floors. She was the woman who had once captivated him. Her golden hair like the summer sun, her Caribbean blue eyes, a smile that could erase the fatigue of his longest surgeries. Now, looking at her face, he saw a complete stranger. "How does it feel, Lucas?" she asked, her tone as even as if she were discussing the weather. "To know you were the only one not in on the game?" "Vanessa," he tried, but the name felt like glue on his tongue. "Oh, don't you Vanessa me," she snapped. "I am so tired of pretending to love you for the past 3 years. Do you have any idea how hard that was? Lying next to you every night, listening to your surgery stories, pretending to care about the charity cases you were so determined to save for free." Derek stepped forward, his arms still possessively around Vanessa. "You were too naive, little brother. Did you really think love conquers all? That your kindness would be repaid in kind?" Lucas looked at the brother he once admired, the one he'd spent his youth trying to save. Born in 1986, Derek was 3 years his senior, but his life was a string of disasters. A cocaine habit in his 20s, theft to feed his addiction. Multiple stints in jail. Every time Derek called, crying for help, Lucas came running like an idiot. In 2019, when Derek claimed he wanted to get clean, Lucas spent $200,000 to send him to a rehab facility in California. Then he brought him home and gave him a prestigious job, chief financial officer of the Callahan Heart Center, the private cardiac hospital Lucas had founded. "I gave you a chance," Lucas said, his voice trembling. "I trusted you. And that was your biggest mistake," Derek scoffed. "You think brotherhood can change a man? That a guy like me would just be grateful and walk the straight and narrow?" Vanessa took another step, closing the distance between them. "You know, Lucas, we planned this for a very long time. Since before I even met you." The words detonated in Lucas's mind. What did you say?" "It was no accident that I met you at that charity gala in 2020. Vanessa said with a cold smile. "Derek told me all about you. The hospital, the money, that stupidly generous heart of yours. He hired me to get to you." Lucas felt his legs weaken. His most cherished memories, meeting Vanessa, her supposed passion for humanitarian medicine, her interest in his free surgery program for poor children, it was all an act. The night you proposed on Folly Beach, Vanessa continued, her voice like a scalpel. Remember? You said you wanted to spend your life protecting me, loving me. It was so sweet. You know what I was thinking? This fool is about to sign his own death warrant. Derek burst out laughing. And the wedding. Oh God, the wedding was so touching. I sat in the front row, watching my little brother cry as he said his vows, while Vanessa just looked at me and hid a smile. Enough, Lucas ground out. That's enough. Not even close, little brother, Derek said, shaking his head. You haven't heard the whole story. You know what Vanessa and I did for the past 3 years while you were at work? We studied your assets. The $15 million hospital. 3 houses. Bank accounts. Stocks. Bonds. All in the name of Lucas Callahan. But not for long, Vanessa said, stroking Derek's hair with a tenderness that made Lucas sick. We've prepared everything. The legal paperwork. The medical diagnoses. The witnesses. You're about to lose it all, Lucas. Lucas stared at them, his mind a chaotic whirl. They hadn't just betrayed him. They had orchestrated his complete and utter ruin. And the most terrifying part? He never saw it coming. Why? He whispered. Why would you do this? Because you deserve it. Derek answered simply. Your whole life you were the perfect son. Good grades, successful, loved by everyone. And me? I was the failure, the addict, the family burden. Do you have any idea what it's like to live in the shadow of an angel? And me? Vanessa interjected. I was just a tool to make money. But I fell for Derek the moment I met him. He's savage. Reckless, dangerous, everything you're not. Lucas felt the world spin. His 3 years of happiness, waking up next to Vanessa, cooking together, traveling, planning for children, had all been an illusion. But in that abyss of pain, a tiny spark of logic ignited. They had made a mistake. They had shown their hand too early. If this was a plan years in the making, why reveal it all now? Why not wait until they had everything and then disappear? Something was missing. He stood silent for a long minute, his eyes fixed on the floorboards he and Vanessa had picked out together. The gun in his hand lowered, not in surrender, but in thought. All right, he said slowly, his voice raspy. You win. I'll sign whatever you want. Just give me some time to understand. Derek and Vanessa exchanged a look. There was a flicker of surprise. They hadn't expected him to capitulate so easily. What do you think, Derek? Vanessa asked. It seems Lucas understands reality. Or are you planning something? Derek narrowed his eyes. You're not the type to give up, Lucas. Lucas shook his head slowly. I'm tired, Derek. Tired of trusting. Tired of trying to save people who don't want to be saved. If this is what you want, then consider it a life lesson I have to pay for. Vanessa stepped closer, studying his face. Are you being serious? You're not just buying time. Where would I go? Lucas gave a bitter laugh. My assets, my job, my life, it's all in Charleston. I can't just run. And more importantly, I don't want to. I want to understand how the 2 people I loved most could do this. Derek seemed satisfied. He released Vanessa and walked to the minibar. Fine. If you want the full story, sit down. And put that gun away. We both know you'd never pull the trigger. Lucas looked at the Glock. Derek was right. He was a healer. He put the gun in a nearby desk drawer and sank onto the black leather sofa where he used to read every night. Derek poured 3 glasses of Macallan 25, the bottle Lucas had bought for their anniversary. He handed one to Vanessa, one to Lucas, and kept the third. A toast, Derek said with a sneer. To the end of a fake marriage and the beginning of the truth. Lucas held the glass but didn't drink. He just watched them, memorizing the moment. Where to begin? Vanessa mused, sinking into the armchair opposite him, her wedding dress pooling around her like wilted petals. Ah yes, the first time Derek contacted me. It was August 2020, Derek continued. I was fresh out of rehab. You thought I changed, but really, I just learned how to manage my addiction. More importantly, I'd learned how to exploit the kindness of others. Derek found me through a mutual acquaintance, Vanessa said, her eyes locked on Lucas. I was working for an interior design firm in New York. He said he needed someone beautiful, smart, and experienced in targeting wealthy men. Lucas's stomach clenched. Targeting? Oh, don't be so naive, Lucas, Vanessa laughed lightly. Why do you think a woman like me would suddenly take an interest in a small-town doctor in Charleston? I had experience in this line of work. Experience? Lucas repeated. The word a punch to the gut. Richard Blackwood, Derek answered for her. Her first husband, a 58-year-old real estate tycoon in New Jersey. He passed away in 2019 from a stroke. A stroke? Lucas frowned. Well, that's what the death certificate says, Vanessa said breezily. In reality, Richard died of slow arsenic poisoning. A tiny amount every day for 6 months. Just enough to mimic the symptoms of a natural decline. The blood in Lucas's veins turned to ice. You murdered him? We didn't murder anyone, Derek said, shaking his head. Vanessa liberated an old man from a lonely, painful existence. He was diabetic, had high blood pressure, and was desperately lonely. Vanessa gave him the happiest final months of his life. And I inherited $2.8 million, Vanessa added, as if discussing a dinner menu. Richard had no children, no close relatives. He left everything to his beloved wife, me. Lucas set his glass down with a trembling hand. So, the plan was? To repeat our success, Derek nodded, but with a much bigger prize. You were worth 5 times as much as Richard. And the best part, you trusted family completely. But there was a problem, Vanessa continued. Richard was old and easy to manipulate. You're smart, cautious, and have a network of colleagues. We couldn't use the same method, so we came up with a more sophisticated plan, Derek smiled. Instead of killing you, we would destroy you from the inside, make you lose your mind, your credibility, and control of your assets. Lucas felt the nightmare deepen. How? First, Vanessa marries you and earns your trust, Derek explained. She gets her name on bank accounts, becomes the beneficiary on your life insurance, and most importantly, gains medical power of attorney for when you're no longer of sound mind. Meanwhile, you trust me with a key position at the hospital, Derek continued, giving me access to the Callahan Heart Center's finances. We set up a shell corporation in the Cayman Islands, Vanessa said, and slowly siphoned money from the hospital under the guise of investments and operating costs. Over the last 2 years, we've moved about $4 million without you ever noticing. Lucas looked up at Derek. You were the CFO. How could I not know? Because you were too trusting. Derek laughed dryly. Every time I gave you a stack of papers, you'd just ask, what's this? I'd say maintenance contracts or new supplier agreements. You trusted me, so you signed without reading. But that was just the beginning, Vanessa said. The main part of the plan was to make you lose your mind. Lose my mind, Lucas repeated. We started medicating you, Derek said softly. Low doses of psychiatric drugs, mixed into your coffee or your water every day. Benzodiazepines, lithium, sometimes haloperidol. Not enough to kill you, but enough to make you unstable. Lucas flinched. He suddenly remembered the splitting headaches, the moments of confusion during surgery, the nights he'd woken up in a fog, unable to remember the day before. You, he whispered. We also created situations to document your erratic behavior, Vanessa continued. I would provoke arguments about money. Derek would report to the hospital board that you were showing signs of stress and overwork. And we gathered plenty of evidence, Derek said. Videos of you yelling at staff. Recordings of you saying things that made no sense. Medical records showing you were prescribing yourself an unusual amount of sleeping pills. Lucas felt his world disintegrate. Everything he thought was real was a lie. So what was the end game? Lucas asked, his voice hoarse. Simple. Vanessa smiled coldly. In the next 2 weeks, I file for divorce. At the same time, Derek reports to the hospital board that you're suffering a severe mental breakdown and are no longer fit to practice. We hired a psychiatrist, Dr. Mark Stevenson, Derek added. He's prepared to diagnose you with bipolar disorder with paranoid delusions. With our evidence, plus your behavior tonight, bringing a gun home and threatening your wife, the court will declare you legally incompetent. Lucas jolted. Threatening my wife? I never. Oh, but you just did, Vanessa said, gesturing to the drawer with the gun. Luckily, I have a video of you storming in here with that gun, looking at me like you wanted to kill me. Derek will corroborate. And once you're declared incompetent, Derek continued, your assets will be managed by a legal guardian. Guess who that will be? Vanessa, Lucas whispered. As your wife. Exactly. And I'll be there to help her manage everything as your brother and the man who knows the hospital's finances best. Lucas felt his brain short-circuit. They had planned everything, down to the last detail. He had been a puppet dancing on their strings. I'll be committed, he said slowly. Millbrook Psychiatric Hospital, Vanessa nodded. A private, closed facility upstate. You'll be well taken care of. Plenty of medication, 24/7 nurses. No more worries. And we'll visit, Derek added with mock concern. Once a month. Tell you how the hospital is doing. Of course, with the memory loss from the drugs, you probably won't remember much. Lucas sat in silence. Outside, the wind blew. The grandfather clock ticked. His life had just been demolished by the two people he loved most. There's one thing I don't get, he finally said. What's that? Vanessa asked. Why tell me all this now? Why not just see the plan through? Derek and Vanessa exchanged another glance, this time with a hint of hesitation. Because we wanted you to know, Derek finally answered. We wanted you to understand that you lost. Completely and utterly. And because we know there's nothing you can do to stop it, Vanessa added. Tomorrow, you'll wake up with a blinding headache from the drug in that whiskey. You won't remember this conversation clearly. You'll think it was a nightmare. Lucas looked at the untouched glass in his hand. And even if you do remember, Derek said, who would believe you? The police? They'll see a man with a history of mental instability who just threatened his wife with a gun. Your colleagues? They've already been prepped by me about your declining mental state. They'll think you're having a paranoid episode. He was right. It sounded like the plot of a horror movie. However, Vanessa said, standing up, we still need your cooperation on one last thing. What? Sign these, Derek said, producing a thick file. Transferring hospital shares to a new management company. Updating your will. A few other financial agreements. Lucas looked at the papers. And if I don't? Then we do it the hard way, Vanessa said. Tonight's video goes to the police. The medical reports go to the court. You'll be charged with assault, maybe even attempted murder. But if you cooperate, Derek said softly, it all goes smoothly. You'll be comfortable at Millbrook. Maybe in a few years, you'll be stable enough for a supervised living facility. Lucas took the file, his mind racing. They wanted him to sign away his entire life. I need to get some air, he said, standing up. Don't do anything stupid, Derek warned. We've already told a few people you've been acting erratically. If you disappear, they'll call the police immediately. I'm just going into the garden, Lucas said. He stepped out the back door into the small, manicured garden where he and Vanessa had planned their future. It was all a lie. He sat on a stone bench and pulled out his phone. Who could he call? Then he remembered. A cryptic text from an unknown number a few weeks ago. You're sleeping with the enemy. Watch Derek and Vanessa. At the time, he dismissed it as a sick prank. Now, he dialed the number. After 3 rings, a woman's voice answered. You finally called. The voice was vaguely familiar. Who is this? He whispered. I'm the only person who can get you out of this, she said. But first, do you trust me? I don't know who to trust anymore. I understand, but if you want to survive the night, you have to listen to me. Derek and Vanessa aren't planning on letting you live, Lucas. They've changed the plan. His heart hammered. What? The drug in that whiskey wasn't to make you forget. It's a lethal dose. They're going to stage your suicide. A doctor who couldn't handle the pressure and the accusations, deciding to end his life. Ice flooded his veins. How do you know? Because I'm the one who helped them set this up. And I regret it. Who are you? Lucas demanded. My name is Sarah Mitchell, the psychiatrist, Dr. Mark Stevenson that Derek mentioned. That's me. Mark Stevenson is a fiction. Lucas's world tilted again. Why are you helping me? Because I'm not a murderer, Sarah said, her voice trembling. I was in debt. Derek offered me money to create a fake diagnosis. I thought that was all it was. But when I found out they planned to kill you. Do you have proof? Yes. I've recorded every conversation with them. I have emails, texts. Most importantly, I know when they plan to act. When? Tonight. Within the hour. They're waiting for the drug to take effect. Then they'll stage the scene. Lucas looked back at the house where Derek and Vanessa were laughing. What do I do? First, don't go back in there. Second, I'm sending you an address. Get there now. I'll give you everything. But if I disappear, they'll call the police. That's why we have to move fast, Sarah said. I have a plan, but you have to trust me completely. Lucas looked at the house that had become a death trap. Okay, he whispered into the phone. I trust you. He walked calmly to the front of the house, got into his BMW, and drove away. He needed to find the truth. And most importantly, he needed to survive the night. The address led him to a 24-hour diner in a deserted industrial park. It was 3:47 a.m. A woman in her 40s with haunted eyes sat in a corner booth with a black leather briefcase. Lucas, she said as he approached. Thank you for coming. Are you really a psychiatrist? He asked. Yes, Sarah said, opening the briefcase. Johns Hopkins graduate, licensed in South Carolina, but I made some bad investments. Derek found me when I was desperate. She pushed a file toward him. This was the initial contract. $50,000 for a fake diagnosis. The file contained emails and recorded calls detailing the fraud. Then they asked for more, Sarah continued, her voice cracking. Vanessa wanted psychiatric drugs to put in your food. I refused, but she threatened to expose me. So you gave them the drugs? Low doses of benzodiazepines and lithium, she nodded. Tears welling. I told myself it wasn't enough to do serious harm. I was wrong. I became an accomplice. So why help me now? Sarah played a recording on her phone. Derek's voice. The plan's changed, Sarah. We can't let Lucas live. He's too smart, he'll find a way out. Vanessa's voice. Can you get us something? Something that ensures he never wakes up? Sarah's voice. Are you insane? I'm not a killer. Derek's voice. You're already an accomplice, Sarah. If you don't help, we'll tell the police the whole poisoning scheme was your idea. The recording ended. That was 2 days ago, Sarah said. I knew I had to do something. What did you give them? A bottle of standard sleeping pills. I told Derek it was cyanide. He doesn't know the difference. But I knew they'd figure it out soon. Lucas looked at the mountain of evidence on the table. This is enough to put them away. Yes, but there's a problem, Sarah said. I'm guilty too. Medical fraud, illegal prescriptions. If I come forward, I'll go to prison. What do you want from me? Sarah looked him in the eye. I want you to help me find a way to put them in jail without taking me down with them. In return, I'll help you get your life back. Lucas thought for a moment. Dawn was breaking. Okay, he finally said, but we need a meticulous plan. And you have to swear you won't betray me. I swear, she said, extending her hand, on my professional honor and my conscience. For the next 2 hours, they planned. First, Lucas said, we need more. What you have isn't enough to prove conspiracy to commit murder beyond a doubt. What do you have in mind? I'm going back. I'll pretend to go along with it, but I'll be wearing a wire. We need them to admit in no uncertain terms that they plan to kill me. It's too dangerous, Sarah protested. I'll be careful, and you'll be nearby, ready to call the police. At 6 a.m., Lucas walked back into his house on Trad Street. Derek and Vanessa were dressed, ready to leave. You're back, Derek said. We thought you'd run. I've been thinking, Lucas said, slumping onto the sofa. You're right. I can't fight this. I'll sign the papers. They exchanged a skeptical glance. Really? Vanessa asked. What changed your mind? I realized I have no other choice, Lucas replied. I can die a fool or live a failure. I choose to live. Derek smiled, still wary. Fine, but before you sign, you need to drink this. He handed Lucas a glass of orange juice. Multivitamins, to keep your strength up. Lucas took the glass, knowing full well what it was. He had to get them to confess. What is this? He asked innocently. Vitamins, I told you, Derek repeated. But I smell something chemical. Like medicine. Lucas, are you stalling? Vanessa asked, stepping closer. No, I just want to know what I'm drinking. After everything, don't I have a right to know? Derek lost his patience. Fine, it's a sedative. To help you rest after last night's stress. How strong a dose? Strong enough so you can sleep peacefully, Vanessa said, her voice turning cold. And never have to worry about anything ever again. You mean, I won't wake up? Derek smirked. You're a smart guy. Yes, this is the final dose. We changed the plan. instead of a psych ward. We decided to end it. Why? Because you're too dangerous, Vanessa explained. You might find a way out. You might find someone who believes you. We can't risk it. And how will you explain my death? Suicide, Derek said. A doctor who couldn't handle the pressure and the accusations of erratic behavior. Very convincing. Especially with the video of you threatening your wife with a gun. Lucas set the glass on the table. So if I drink this, I die. If I don't, you force me. Exactly, Vanessa nodded. Cooperate. And we'll make it painless. And if I don't? Derek pulled a gun from behind his back. Then we do it the messy way. Still looks like a suicide, just not as clean. Lucas looked at the gun. Then at the orange juice. He had what he needed. The wire in his pocket was recording everything. One last question, he said. What now? Derek snapped. How did Vanessa kill her first husband? Vanessa flinched. What? Richard Blackwood. You said it was arsenic poisoning. I want the details. Why does that matter? Derek asked. I want to know how I'm going to die. Will it be painful? Like it was for him. Vanessa glanced at Derek, then answered. Richard was different. I put arsenic in his coffee every day for 6 months. Slowly. He died thinking it was just old age. And me. You'll be faster, Derek said. The cyanide takes about 10-15 minutes. You'll get dizzy, have trouble breathing, then pass out. Not much pain. Lucas nodded. Thank you for being honest. Then he stood up and hurled the glass of orange juice against the wall. It shattered, the drugged liquid splashing everywhere. But I'm not going to die, he said, pressing a button on the recording device that emitted a loud beep. Because everything you just said has been recorded. For a second, they froze. Then Derek aimed his gun at Lucas. You think you're so smart? He snarled. I think I was lucky to meet the right person, Lucas replied. At that moment, the front door burst open. A team of police officers and FBI agents swarmed in, weapons drawn. Drop the weapon, an agent yelled. Derek Callahan, Vanessa Callahan, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder. Derek swung his gun toward the officers but was instantly taken down by a taser. Vanessa made a break for the back door but was tackled by a female agent. Sarah Mitchell walked in behind them, holding a recorder. It's all here, she told the agents. They confessed to the plot against Lucas and the murder of Richard Blackwood. Lucas collapsed onto the sofa, the world spinning. It was over, but he knew his life would never be the same. As they were led away, Vanessa turned to look at him one last time. Her eyes were no longer cold, but filled with a burning, venomous rage. You think you've won? She screamed. You don't know anything about your family, Lucas. You don't know the secrets we've kept. What is she talking about? Lucas asked an agent. We'll find out. The agent replied, but first we need your full statement. As the police cars pulled away from Trad Street, Lucas watched with a hollow feeling. He had survived, but the life he knew was dead. Vanessa's recorded confession was the key that unlocked the hell they had built. With irrefutable proof of a murder conspiracy, the FBI launched a full-scale investigation. Her final words to Lucas, you don't know anything about your family, spurred agents to dig into every dark corner of their past. The Richard Blackwood case was reopened. At the FBI's request, his body was exhumed from a quiet New Jersey cemetery. The forensic results were damning. His tissues contained abnormally high levels of arsenic, confirming Vanessa's story of slow poisoning. Financial investigators also traced the $2.8 million from Richard's estate directly to Vanessa, a portion of which was then funneled to a shell company linked to Derek. Simultaneously, the audit of the Callahan Heart Center revealed a sophisticated fraud network. Derek had created a phantom world of fake invoices and non-existent service contracts, siphoning nearly $4 million into the Cayman Islands. Lucas, in his blind trust, had signed off on every transaction. The web of lies was collapsing. The trial of Derek and Vanessa Callahan became a media sensation. Lucas, as the star witness, had to relive his nightmare in public. The prosecution laid out the mountain of evidence, the recordings, the forensic reports, the financial trail, and the full testimony of Sarah Mitchell, who had accepted a plea deal. Derek remained defiant, attempting to paint Lucas as mentally unstable. But Vanessa, ever the survivor, saw the writing on the wall. When she took the stand, she broke down in a flood of crocodile tears. Derek masterminded everything, she choked out, casting a fearful glance at him. He controlled me, he threatened me. I was terrified. She painted herself as another of his victims, a battered woman forced to comply. Derek was stunned into silence, then exploded in rage. She's lying. That bitch? It was her idea. His outburst only sealed his fate. He looked exactly like the manipulative abuser Vanessa described. In the end, Derek Callahan was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Vanessa, for her performance and cooperation, received a lesser sentence of 25 years. The trial was over, but for Lucas, the aftermath was a prison of its own. He was a local celebrity, a tragic figure. The hospital, his life's work, was sold. The house was a monument to his pain. The name Lucas Callahan was forever tied to scandal. He had to escape. He staged a long trip to Europe and simply vanished. Lucas Callahan ceased to exist. 3 years later, in the small, windswept town of Bar Harbor, Maine, a man named Leo lived a quiet life. He worked as a boat and wood repairman, his hands, once dedicated to healing hearts, now finding peace in shaping wood. He was solitary, safe, and numb. One autumn afternoon, a car pulled up to his small cottage. A woman who looked like a social worker stepped out, followed by a 10-year-old girl with dark brown hair and piercing blue eyes. Eyes that stopped Leo's heart. They were the eyes of Elizabeth, the woman he had loved before Vanessa. The woman who had vanished from his life 11 years ago with a letter saying she no longer loved him. Mr. Sullivan, the social worker asked, "We've been looking for you for a long time." Mr. Callahan. The name hit him like a physical blow. "This is Lily," the woman said gently. "Lily's mother was Elizabeth. She didn't leave you, Lucas." Derek threatened her. He forced her to disappear and to keep the baby a secret. He faked that letter. The world tilted on its axis once more. Vanessa's words echoed in his mind. Derek's betrayal ran deeper than he could have ever imagined. He hadn't just stolen his money and his wife, he had stolen his family. Elizabeth passed away from an illness 2 years ago. The social worker continued. "Her will explained everything and asked us to find you." Lucas knelt before the little girl. In her eyes, he saw not only the woman he had lost, but a reflection of himself. "Hi, Lily," he said, his voice thick with emotion. I'm your father." The little girl slowly reached out and touched his cheek. A single tear traced a path through the dust on his face. It was not a tear of pain, but of a profound loss and a hope he thought was long dead. Lucas had believed survival meant erasing the past. But the arrival of Lily taught him otherwise. Survival isn't about forgetting. It's about facing the wreckage and rebuilding. Betrayal can steal your faith, your fortune, and your years, but it cannot steal your capacity to love, especially when that love is your own flesh and blood. He was no longer Lucas Callahan, the betrayed surgeon, nor was he Leo, the reclusive carpenter. He was a father, and that was the only identity that mattered. He had found a reason not just to survive, but to truly live. Taking Lily's hand, he said, "Let's go home."